Hey, what's up, everyone? I hope you had a great weekend. I'm super excited to go over this meeting with you guys because I think that this is a really helpful meeting. I think it'll teach you guys a lot, and it'll be helpful through all the rest of your classes once you're done with school. So I'm pretty pumped to be here today. So how's everyone today? How's everyone this morning? How's everyone's weekend? Also, I am going to ask chat to try to pop off today. I'm going to be asking you guys a lot of questions, but I'm confident that you guys will come up clutch. So when I ask you a question, just put whatever you guys think. I'm going to be watching chat. So yeah, I'm going to go over all the comments, anything anyone's saying. And also, just as a reminder, we have the attendance link in the description. So go sign in just to make sure you get credit for it. Go sign in just. Okay. We'll just wait a little bit longer just to make sure, and then once we get some people in, then we can go ahead and start this meeting. Is it also, just as a reminder, we have the Black Mirror event sign up that closes on Wednesday. So don't forget to get your team and get your sign up in just so you can participate. It's a great way to get a little experience and pitching. Even if it's like minor case comp experience, I think that's super valuable. So definitely sign up. Sign-ups due Wednesday end of day, and then also for that, we're going to be hosting 2 different office hour periods. One of them is going to be Thursday from 5 to 7, and the second one's going to be Saturday from 1 to 3. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me, whoever else, some other e-board members might be there, and we'll be more than happy to help you kind of either walk through your design or go through how you're going to pitch it, anything like that. We'd be pumped to do that. What's up, Grace? How was your weekend, Grace? Okay. We'll wait 1 more minute. It says it's not accepting attendance. Give me 1 second. Engaged in what? Oh. Okay, well, we're gonna have to figure that out then. But, all right. Well, thanks for telling me, John. Appreciate that. So we'll figure out how to make sure you guys get signed in, whether it's through the Google form or something. We'll figure it out for you guys. Okay. So now we got a couple more people. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to ask chat to be as engaged as possible for this one because it's going to help you guys. It's going to help you guys understand what the concepts we're going through, and I think that's going to be super valuable. So going over Design Eye. So here we're going to give you some examples of some of the slide decks we've gotten in SVS, and we're going to go over maybe some ones that can be improved, and then we're going to show you what a little bit more of a cleaner, kind of more refined version of that would look like. So I'm going to ask you guys some questions about the ones that need to be improved. And then you guys just let me know what you think is wrong with the slides. So let's get started. Here's the first slide. This is going to be a competitive, like a competitor slide. This is for a jewelry company called Missouri. So as you can see, they go over 5 main points of difference between all 4 competitors. And that part's really great. It's really good to break down and to make it very easy for the reader. But does anybody have any suggestions as to what would be done differently, what they think that they can improve upon? I'm checking chat, so if anyone has any ideas, definitely drop it in chat. Otherwise, I could always start with this one and kind of open it up for everyone. Okay, Ashvin, slide seems a little too congested with info, not enough space. Charlie said too many words. Both of those are really strong answers. That's kind of what we were getting at. So if you look at this, like right here, you see that there's really not much space. This one has plenty of space. So there's a little bit of a problem with consistency. And yes, definitely, as you guys alluded to, there's a problem with spacing. Also, if you're a little bit, like if you're really kind of zoned in, you can see that on this side, there's only a little bit of space. And on this side, there's a little bit more. So we want to make sure that everything is centered and everything, trackers should be at the very bottom, kind of like hugging the side. So some main things that you're going to have to remember when doing design is information hierarchy, which is super important. And then also white space, which is super important. Both of those things are like necessary to have good slide design because it allows the reader to read the slide quickly and also get all the information that you're trying to convey. So here, let me just check a couple more. Sebastian said, oh, the attendance link. The attendance, we're having some problems. We're probably going to end up making a form. So we're going to make a form and then drop that link instead. Too complicated. Needs consistency in formatting each row. I definitely agree with that, Alex. Eyes drawn to logos instead of comparison. Yeah, we're going to get into the logo. The logo is a little bit, later on, but that's a great pickup. I think that you're 100% correct. Also, another important thing is if you're reading this slide, you're not automatically drawn to, you don't really know what it's about immediately because the title slide is like the title font is a little bit too small. So now I'm going to show you kind of an improved version, and then I'm going to go back and show you what this will look like. So an improved version, as you can see, it's very, very clear. It's super easy to read. So you can see that competitive analysis is the main title. That is the takeaway that the presenter wants you to have. And that's really important if you're just skimming through these because you want to be able to identify immediately what is this slide trying to tell me. So having that title as big and bolded and that really draws the emphasis, and that's the top in the information hierarchy, and that's really what you need to take away. Also, you can see that the new design, it kind of tightened everything up. Everything is close to the same amount of lines, which is good. And you can see that there's a lot more white space. There's like right here, kind of gives you room to breathe on this slide a little bit, as opposed to the other one, which was a little bit more congested. You can see that this is now at the bottom. And it's very, very clear. This slide, now you can kind of read through it. You can easily draw comparisons without getting distracted by the amount of text. So that's really what we wanted you to get from this one. Really good by chat. Chat was on its game for that one. So now let's go on to the next one. This is a company overview slide. So what do you think are some things you can take away from the company overview slide, and what are some things that you think need improvement? Let's see. What's chat saying? Weird rows. Likes the colors. Okay, Sebastian. I think that's fair. A bit too many topics on one slide. Community should be green. Info doesn't flow well. Those are all great. Sebastian, Ashvin, Alex. I 100% agree. Okay, so now I'm gonna break this slide down. First of all, I'd just love to say that you can have more slides. More slides is always going to be better than cramming information onto one slide. Because, like I said, if people are flipping through this, you really want to be able to grasp all the information as quickly and easily as possible. So when it's when a bunch of information is crammed into one slide, it makes it very difficult. Also, another issue with this one that I haven't seen in chat, should have headers icons top rather than top left. The only thing that I think for this is that they should have a title on this slide. Bloomscape is the name of the company, which is good to have, but I think it's a lot more helpful to have company overview as the title, because that's really what the takeaway of this slide is going to be. Having a description is fine, but I think that a similar problem from the other one is that it's a little bit congested. Like usually you want to have a little bit more room on the top because people tend to focus on the middle of the slide as opposed to the ends. And you really don't want to have like actual content going out that far. You can have like a picture maybe that like leans over the edge. That's fine. You can have some other things that like a tracker, doesn't matter if it's like kind of on the side. But when you're coming down to content, you really want to make sure your content is kind of in a centered place in the slide, because that's where it's going to draw the most attention. Yeah, so another issue here is that you can see that some of this stuff isn't necessarily formatted in the greatest way. Like for this, it would be better if you had, if they were kind of in a block as opposed to bulleted. Yeah, and now I'll show you kind of what our improved version of this slide is. So like I said, the first thing that this changed is they had the title as company overview. I think that's way stronger. I think that it helps kind of set the tone and show people what is this slide actually about. This is not the exact same company, but it's extremely similar. So we could just go through it real quick. So they again kept the icon there, but they made it smaller and they had it in line with the description. Then they broke it down, I think, in a way clearer way. So they had it in 3 main sections, and in those 3 main sections, they still put it in a way that you can read all the information and kind of get that key bit without kind of too much stress, which I think is extremely strong. I think this is a good slide in general. Everything seems to be a lot more even. So even like these 2-line descriptions, it's very tight, and it's almost block-like text. And that's kind of what you're going for when you're designing. You don't really want things hanging over the edge. You don't want it to look unbalanced. Really, the goal is to try to make everything look as balanced as possible. And I think this slide does a lot better at that than the previous one. But you can still also see this is kind of a little bit off. But I think a great thing about this slide is how they used the font and then manipulated the font and the words to give emphasis. So for business model, they not only put it in all caps, but they also changed the color, which clearly shows that that is a standout piece. So when you're reading this slide, the information hierarchy goes company overviews first, Then you might notice either Bowery or you go into the 3 main topics. And then as you go through those, you end up reading all of these and then the description as well. So I think that's a really strong improvement that we made to this slide. Again, I like the information that they included, but I think that the other slide definitely shows it in a little bit better of a way. And here's the last thing. Here's the last one that we're going to go over in this like short kind of burst, because each burst has its own, set of problems that we want to improve upon. So here's the last one. Let me know what you guys think here. So this is a kind of like a market map, if you will. Also kind of a competitor slide. So what do we think about this slide? Sebastian doesn't love it. Okay, Richard, headers for each section are too small. I think that's fair. The titles sections probably shouldn't be in the 4 corners. That I also agree with, Alex. All right, so here's some extra comments from chat. Too many logos, not very much information. And Sebastian agrees with Alex that it probably shouldn't be in the corners. Okay, I definitely agree with that, chat. Great job. You're killing it right now. Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to get at. So I don't love that the titles, that the little subtitles of each section are in the corners. I think that draws away attention, and I don't think it's necessarily super clear. Also, like you guys said, the subtitles are a little small and they don't necessarily draw the eye, which is definitely an issue because that's one of the main takeaways. There's one more thing that I'm trying to get out for this slide. What is one other issue? Do we know? Another issue is that it's kind of unbalanced, if you guys know what I mean. Like this one has like 11, and then this one has 6, and then this one has 6, and then this one has 9. And it's like, it's just a little weird that some of them have so many more than others. And we really don't want to do that because it kind of throws off whoever's looking at it, just because it does look kind of cluttered up here, but then here it kind of looks fine. So we want to make sure we're consistent when it comes to that. We want to have the same amount or similar amount, or at least aesthetically, it has to be a kind of like a similar amount to balance all of them. So chat, I agree with all of what you guys said as well. Now let's take a look at the improved version. So this is like way different, and it comes to, it's still the same idea. It's a market map, show the competitive analysis, but this is so much cleaner. Like you can see that the information hierarchy, I know I'm saying that term a lot, it gets annoying, but it really is important to think about when you're actually designing, because that's the way that people are going to be reading it. So you want to be able to consider that. So market map obviously pops out first. It's in the darkest text on the slide, and it's the largest font. So that is definitely the title. That is the first thing people read. Then you kind of go to the subsector off of that because it is also different, and it's the second biggest text on the slide. You could see that this one's way better balanced. So you could see that this one, it's kind of balanced in 4. This one only has 2, but it still like looks fine because this one's centered with this. This one has 4. This one has 4. So like that's way cleaner. As you guys said, it's not kind of tucking away each of the sub headers, and it has it straight under it, and I think that's a lot cleaner. So as you guys can see, I think this one is definitely an improvement over this. Also in general, sometimes it's harder to have these big blocked title things that you can have them, but just having that sometimes reduces the amount of slide you have to work with, which can be difficult because, like we said, we don't want to use some of this, but having it too blocked off could definitely pose as an issue, and it still makes a problem if it looks cluttered with the text and this box. So you're kind of reducing your space there. So yeah, so you guys did a really great job on that. So I'll just go over quickly. Too much going on. That's the main takeaway that we want you guys to get for these 3 slides. There's just a little bit too much. The content can be perfect, but if there's too much on one slide, the reader's not going to get it all, and they're not going to understand it all. So you're kind of just hurting yourself, and that is definitely not the goal. What we want is to provide the information in such a clear way that someone can flip through it, skim through it, and be able to get all the main points you're trying to get. So that's the first issue that we're going to go through. Now we can get into kind of our second little sprint, if you will. And here's one right here. So feel free, chat, to go and say whatever you dislike about this slide, and we're going to go into it in a little bit. Font left is too big. Okay. Sebastian says the colors of the background of the logos. Okay, that's a great comment, Sebastian. We have the bank part specifically. Okay. And then no indicator of tracker. That is, Anurva, that is a great call. And we're definitely going to talk about that. I think you're 100% correct. Ashvin gets at the same thing, that the tracker doesn't specify what part they're on. So trackers can be super useful, but they're also actually very tricky. So we're kind of going to go into that a little bit, and we're going to break down what makes a good tracker. We're going to break down how you can have one that doesn't distract people, but kind of helps people guide. I think it could be helpful if you do it right, but if you do it wrong, it actually detracts from the slide. Alex brings up one of the greatest points I've seen. What is the title of this slide? Like, if you guys just looked at it, you wouldn't initially understand what they're talking about unless you read into it. That is not what we want. What we want is someone be able to look at the slide for 2 seconds or a second and be able to know to understand what is this slide about. Sebastian brings up that this should center line the text body to line up with the headers. And Alex mentions again that there's an imbalance of text between 1 and 2. So yeah, that is similar to what I said earlier about text imbalance and icon imbalance, that kind of thing. So first of all, we talked about the logos a bunch in chat, so I will go over that first. So this one obviously has 3 logos. 2 of them, they're boxed. 1 of them is a rectangle. That already is a little bit odd. Usually you either go with all rectangles or all squares, something like that, as long as you're consistent. I think that's the best. Also, so this one has 3, this one only has 2. And this one looks, so Bank of America and KKR both don't have backgrounds to frame it, so their heights look off. So this one, they both look smaller than the rest of them, which is an issue. Definitely not what we're going for. Also, Alex, like I said, brought a probably a great point. This slide doesn't even have a title. So when you're looking at this slide, you don't even really know what to first look at. There's nothing that immediately grabs you, which is a problem. We want to be able to see immediately what is the meaning of this slide. And then we also talked about the imbalances. Yeah, it kind of looks weird that this is centered, that's centered, this appears to be centered, this is left aligned. In general, I'm just not a fan of having just a singular digit above this. It's usually better to have an icon or have this off to the side or something. but having it center aligned in the middle is not a great look. You guys mentioned the tracker, which is a great call. I especially liked those who called out that the tracker doesn't tell you which slide you're on, or at least which part you're on. I think that's a great point because that is literally the purpose of the tracker, to tell people you're this far in the presentation. This is the section we're covering. So if you have a tracker that doesn't really distinguish it well, that is a huge issue. So we will now show you the improved version of this slide, and we'll go over why this is so much stronger. So actually, I want to ask chat, why do you think this slide's better? So I've been telling you guys about the improved slides, but I want to see what you guys think. Why is this slide better? Clear containerization of information. Andre, that's a great point. Sebastian, aesthetic colors. I definitely agree. I think that, can anyone say anything else about the colors besides them being aesthetic? What do you think they do well? As a title, Sheffy, great job. Anurva, easy to understand. I agree with that 100%. Big title, yep, that goes down to the information hierarchy we were talking about. That is the main takeaway. If someone looked at this slide for literally a second, they understand what that slide is. They do not clash with the icon colors. Good point, Sebastian. They're subdued and close to being complementary colors. Okay, chat, you guys killed it. You guys got a lot of the points I was going to talk about. So yeah, so obviously this slide is way cleaner. It's so much easier to understand. It has a title, very clear. Also, you notice that all of these are like all the exact same size. Alex put me on this trick. Alex who? That you could literally go to a company's LinkedIn and just copy the logo, because then you know that all the sizes are going to be the exact same. It's going to be their most updated logo as well. And that really helps when you're trying to keep it clear and try to keep everything consistent. The colors, like we said, they're very aesthetic, but also they have a very functional role. You can notice that in this improved slide, we don't even need 1 and 2 because the colors make it very clear that they're separate points. And that's what we were going for. We don't want it to be, we don't want to have to include that if it's going to kind of be extra confusing or if it's going to throw off the balance. So by having the colors, it does that same function, but in a lot more of a subtle way that isn't kind of, that doesn't throw off anyone who's viewing it. Yeah, so you could see that this, we actually did center align the text, the body text for both of them, which is really nice. This part is just an extra aesthetic part that kind of keeps everything balanced because we don't want it to have too many logos on the right and then there's small bits of text on the left. It's always nice to have something breaking it up. So that's why that was included. That was more just an aesthetic piece, but also, you know, it helps kind of, it helps walk the eye across the page. So your eye clearly goes from exit opportunities down to acquired by bank, institutionalized, and then you walk across the page from left to right. You can see that in the tracker. Now something is highlighted, the rest is grayed out. That is a point the chat brought up, which is great. Now you can tell where you are in the presentation as well. So this is huge because you know what the you know what the context of this slide is. So the context of the slide is future opportunities. So the exit opportunities within the future opportunities. So that's really strong. This one, what do we think about this slide in general? We might have actually made a couple edits to this slide. So so it doesn't have, this one's definitely a little bit stronger than the other improvement slides, but there are still some things that we can bring up. So I think that What does chat have to say? Unnecessarily large top margin. Okay. Tracker. We have some more issues with the tracker. I agree with that, guys. Text body too big. I love that comment. That is a great comment, Sebastian. I think people often worry and they make the text a little bit too big for body. Really, it doesn't unless it's a problem to read, you don't need to make it that big. So I think that it's always stronger to have more white space than it is to fill up the space with large body text, because that kind of is just a little bit more confusing and it doesn't have any functional purpose. Kenny thinks it looks overall good, but doesn't love the tracker as well. What's the point of making some of the text purple? That is a great point, Alex. And Richard likes the color schemes and bolding. Okay, so we'll go into this one now. If you look into this, some of the first things that you think about is what Alex was talking about when it comes to emphasis of different words. So some people talked about the title. I don't think the title is necessarily an issue. There's white space, which is good. Title's very bolded. That's strong. So that part I think is fine. But I really think that the part that what Alex was talking about is kind of the issue. So when you look at this, affordability and convenience, they seem almost equally important, and it seems like it's kind of arbitrary which one was chosen. Also, if you look at this, you can see that this one's 1, but these 2 are 2. This one had these 2 start out with purple text. This one ends with purple text. So when you're looking at these subheaders, it's kind of a little bit more confusing than it is informative, which is that's always like the opposite of what we want. We want to have the most informative text, and it has to be as clear as possible. So you can also see that there's not a huge difference between these two texts. Like this one, as you can see, is 30. This one's 30. There's a slight difference in the weighting, which is bold versus book. But in general, it doesn't really differentiate itself too much, which is also an issue. The tracker, like we said, kind of detracts, and that's kind of a theme. Like if you're not careful with your tracker, it can do that. I think this tracker, I think the gradient might throw it off a little bit, and that might be a little bit difficult. Also, you have to be careful with your icons, people. Just to kind of give you guys a heads up, like this icon is a little bit too big. Like you can even get away with it being like a little bit smaller. Make sure it's centered, something like that. That's just as strong. Also, this can be a little bit smaller, and all of this. In general, you just have to be conscious of your space that you have. Like, looks a little bit cluttered if you have too big of icons. Also, another issue, this one's smaller, but I think it's important to note. Also, another issue. If you look at this, you can see that this circle isn't actually a perfect circle. So the ways that you can change, it's actually 101 by 92. So the way you can change it is just go and literally type in like 92, and now it's a perfect circle. So you can make sure that you have like perfect circles every time, and that's really what you have to do. Also, when you're making a circle, you just press O, and then this is like random, and you could try your best to get a perfect circle. Like that's pretty close, but you can see like when you look at the top right, it's not perfect. All you have to do is hit shift. And if you hit shift, it'll hold the proportions perfectly, and you'll always get a perfect circle no matter what. So that's just something to note. If you guys use Figma, we suggest using Figma because that always helps. But Yeah, so just keep that in mind that that's an easy way to do it. Okay, so now if you look at this one, it cleaned up all the circles, all of the all of the icons are a little bit cleaner as well. And you can see that um actually this one's a little bit so also another thing I would do is I would probably bring this text down a little bit. I think that'll help kind of let the slide breathe a little bit. So you can see there's always going to be a give and a take when it comes to design. Like even if you look at a slide, you might not like it the 10th time you look at it, but in general, here's some like things you can do to fix it. Just remember that it's an ongoing process. You're always going to be kind of changing things up. These also are not top aligned. Here's a rough thing that you can do. But in general, you always just have to pay attention to white space, stuff like that. Make sure it's not cluttered. And you have to make sure that everything's sized correctly. Okay, so what do we think about this slide? Oh, is Alex here?
Hey, man.
Hey, what's up, Alex? Everyone, Alex is our design guru at SVS. He will he will have extra information that I don't even know about because Alex is our guy. All the graphics that you guys see on Instagram, that is all Alex. And yeah, so Alex, I would love to get some of your input on some of these slides. And yeah, see what you have to think.
Yeah, I'll try to add whenever I can, but I think you're doing a great job, man. I just came back from discrete math exam. That's why I'm a little late. But Joe, you're doing awesome. So I'll let you keep going at it, and I'll try to add whenever I can.
Okay, yeah, perfect. So right now we're on the product overview slide. Let's see what chat has to say about it. Chat says awful color scheme. Okay. I think that's it's tough when you're doing a pitch to like because you want to use their color scheme. So you can see that they did that. This color, although I don't know if it's even perfect to that color, but in general, they try to match it, and I think that's fine. Perhaps this, like the dark gray, isn't a great choice to have, holding your title in. But in general, I think that the color, the green's fine. What are some other things that you guys don't love about this slide? Looks like a Metro card. That's funny, Sebastian. Okay, tracker's missing. Tracker you don't always need. Sometimes it helps. Like I said, sometimes it doesn't. So we don't like force you to have a tracker. One issue that I can immediately tell you is a problem is you can see that. Oh, I moved the slide. Okay. You can see that all of this text has the exact same weighting. So it kind of makes it confusing. Like this, I guess, was meant to be the second in the hierarchy of like what you're supposed to be looking at. So it's supposed to go title, then this was meant to go second. But because all of these have the exact same weighting, it's really hard to get that. So one really quick thing, why isn't it clicking? One really quick thing, what is going on here? That you can do is you can change the weighting of these. So that'll help it immediately and just kind of make it a little bit cleaner. So even like that one small change kind of shows you that like now you understand what to look at. As we went to earlier, this one has it's a little bit tight and congested compared to the top of the screen. Also, this extends well beyond the end of these. So that's another thing we want to look at. So Alex, what do you think about this slide?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things I really liked about this slide when we like remade it or tried to remake it roughly. As you can see, like on the previous slide, each icon only had like the lines of text. So it's really hard to kind of just like really quickly look through it and be like, oh, these are the four main points. Because you can see that from the icons, there are four main points. So with here, like not only are you enumerating the 4 points with the icons, but now you've got like headers, which tell you, okay, this is main point 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can really quickly see, okay, if I want to see the four main points, I'll look at the headers. If I want to look more for like more detailed and get some more description, I'll read the short description below it. And I believe I think the information hierarchy works out well here too, because the text, the body text is a little smaller, and then the header text is a little bolded. I would say it does still look a little cramped, so I might fix up the spacing here, but it's definitely much better. You can see on the left as well. They've really cleaned up. They've really created more space in the whole margin because they put the two pictures a little superimposed, I guess, which works in this case because each of these pictures looks like it looks like the pictures are don't have a background, so it looks kind of cool that way. It gives some more space to breathe. But yeah, I think those are the two things that stand out to me.
Yeah, I think another thing that you can look at. So when you're doing stuff like this, if you just highlight all of this, you can see that right now these are all kind of linked with each other. Then if you go to this pink bar, you can just automatically change spacing, which I think is a huge thing that you guys can do. Also, what you can do is you can swap orders by holding on to the little circle in the middle.
Yeah.
That makes it super easy if you just want to change up, maybe you do want to have some kind of logical order to all of anything that's on a slide should have a logical order. So when you're looking at this, if you don't think it makes sense to have, offer lowest possible shipping rates last, it'd be really easy just to click all of these and say, you know what, I want that to be third, second, first. So something like that. I think that as you're designing, you're going to realize, how to structure everything so it's just automatically intuitive. But once you get to that point, it'll make it a lot easier.
Yeah, I think Alex also brought up a good point. The icons were the same size, but yeah, that's a good point too.
All right, guys. What about this slide? You guys can go in. I'm worried about Sebastian. I'm worried that Sebastian's going. Oh, Sebastian left him. Oh my goodness. Oh my. No, Sebastian, you can't say that. But yeah, Sebastian, this is not a great slide. I like the information that they have, though. I think that's actually really strong. I just think that the design is actually detracts from the content that they're telling us, which is strong content. So that's like we said, design can be such a strong asset, but if it's done wrong, it can be equally as detrimental to your presentation.
Exactly. Yeah.
So now, Alex, tell us some of the glaring things that come from this slide. Like, what are some things that automatically stand out when you're looking at it?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to unpack here. I think the first thing comes to mind that really hurts me a little is the logos. Definitely try to you make them the same size, and B, if there's background color, make them all background color. If there's no background color, make them all have no background color. And even if there are background color, make sure they're the same background color. Like you've got like a white one and a black one, and then yeah, that's a big no-go. Second thing as well, main thing I guess would be like text. I mean, they're all kind of like right top left aligned, which is kind of an odd choice, and you can kind of tell as well that this is probably a screenshot of like a Google Doc.
It's actually
it probably is, yeah, because you can see the line.
You can see when you zoom in.
So it doesn't really fit also with the style of the deck, I guess. Yeah, and then the color scheme is also just not great. And then as well, like you look at the table and then you look at the title and then the margins. You see the left and the right are much bigger. The bottom's like super small, so it's not, the spacing is off as well. But at the same time, in the center of the graph, there's like so much space between cells. So it's like almost like a ironic in that like it looks like there's like it's cramped because like the table is so big and takes up like there's a very little margin at the bottom. But then within the table, there's so much space within each cell. So there's a lot of things going on wrong with the spacing, the logos, the text, and even like the white on the teal is a little hard to read on that left side too. I could keep going on, but I think those are
yeah. I think we could definitely keep going on. Even small things like, guys, if you're gonna have lines, like a series of lines, make sure that they are all the same width. like they all have the same size to it, because it could look really, it just throws it off. Like this slide you immediately look at and you just know something, you know there's a lot of things off. But yeah, so it just doesn't settle well. What Alex was talking about the logos is really good. What he's saying is make sure that they either have no background or the same colored background. That is actually way easier than you think. If you literally type into Google like Airbnb logo, and then you can either go on tools or you can literally just put in search and just say transparent.
Yeah.
If it's transparent, that means the background is, there's no background color. So even if it looks like it on the picture, once you copy it, you can see that there's nothing behind it.
Yeah.
And it'll have a little grid. It'll have like a little gray,
little
white
box grid.
And that'll show you this has no background. So if you drag it onto one of these slides, it'll look like this, which is no background, as opposed to this, which is a little awkward.
Yeah.
Okay, now
before we go into this, I will say that we've slandered that slide a lot, but again, like as you mentioned, like the content is like okay, it's good. This is a very common like competition slide where you put all your 4 competitors side by side, compare them by these metrics. Like it's got decent content, but again, like if you know you don't utilize or you don't put in the effort to design or to convey the information in a very clear, concise way, it really detracts from the presentation, even though you may have great content.
Yeah, 100%. I actually think this has really strong content, but like we said, I think we hammered it home that design does matter. Alex, can you tell us about this slide and what throws you off about this slide?
Yeah, a couple things. This one you can tell is just 5 screenshots of somewhere else that they just kind of pasted on. So one is that it doesn't fit with the rest of the theme of the slide deck. The second thing as well is that, again, with the margins, you've got like the 2, screenshots that are at the very bottom that are just like stuck to the bottom. So that also hurts a little bit. It looks like the sizing of each one is a little off as well. But I think the main thing also is that you don't want to rely on text that's within a screenshot of a picture or whatnot. You want to have your own headers, your own information to kind of guide the reader or guide the viewer about what this slide really means. It says one of a kind shopping. That's kind of a vague title. Like, what is that supposed to mean? This looks like it's more of like a process or like some sort of packaging process. So it might have been much more helpful if they had a more practical title or practical headers. They have arrows, which kind of help, but again, it would be much better if they had some sort of headers or information guiding this, and if they kind of tailored the pictures more to the style of the deck. And even in the arrows, you can see like the arrows in the top 2 are spaced differently than the arrow at the bottom, which is also a turn off. But yeah, anything else you see, Joe?
Yeah, I just want to say that these decks often are, most of the decks that we're making are content decks. And at the core, they have to be content decks. So this slide doesn't really give you much content. Like it's kind of light on that. Like, yeah, you can read the text, which is, still a little bit, vague. The title's vague. So you don't want to include anything in your pitch deck that doesn't have extreme value up front. Also, one easy thing you can do, as Alex was kind of commenting, you can just kind of highlight all of the content, hit K, which makes sure that the proportions stay the same, and just make it smaller. And even though these photos are not the same size, at least now you don't have things pressing up against the end, the border of the slide, which would be an issue. So in general, try to stay away from things like this. Try not to just include screenshots. Make sure that you have some of your own original content, your own analysis, some of that on every single slide. Yeah. Okay, so now we can go into this slide. This slide is going to be an interesting one. I'm interested in seeing what chat thinks. Chat, what do we think about this slide? Close, but no. I think that's an interesting one, Sebastian. Um, okay. Unnecessary underline for header. Amanda likes it. I say this is again. I would like to say that this slide actually has good content, very strong content. That's what we're like. Of course, that is one of the main goals every single time you're looking at it, because you really want to make sure that the viewer is getting what you're trying to say in every single slide. But Alex, now tell us, how does the design impact this slide? And what are some issues?
Yeah. First thing that stands out to me, I think Sebastian touched upon this a little bit. The right side has a lot of weird things going on. The underline is a little throwing me off a bit. And specifically, though, the teal body text, I'm not sure if that's a great move. Again, teal is kind of a harsh color to read, and just off the bat, and that just detracts a lot from me trying to figure out more about these industry growth drivers. The more important part, though, in the text is that, it looks like you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 main points, and they're all just stuck right together. And you've got these like bullet point, like copy pasted bullets. Again, if you've got like 5 main points, you really want to enumerate them so it's just really easy to read off of a slide deck. We've seen the tactics before where you use like icons, or you use headers, or you use headers and body text. Those make it a lot easier to like easily read from the information hierarchy. So that's a big point. That it's just really hard to skim this. And a point as well to the industry growth drivers underline thing. It's hard to kind of see where your eye goes first, because your title is on the top left, but it's a little smaller and it's not underlined, and you've got the supposedly subtitle industry growth. So it throws off the whole industry, the whole information hierarchy aspect of it. And a lot of the small aesthetic thing is that little separator is way too thick. And as well, it's a little taller than the text on the right and the graph on the left, so that kind of throws me off too. And as well, it looks like I think that graph, it looks like it's copy pasted as well.
That is a screenshot. Good call.
Yeah, and because you can see like the space between each bar is a little much for our style, but that's getting into a little more of the nitty gritty.
That is a little nitty gritty, but I think it definitely has merit, because as you were talking, I literally made a quick graph, and it's really not hard. Like, guys, it's worth it. Because sometimes first of all, it takes a lot of effort to make sure you have the exact right colors in your Excel, to make sure that you take a screenshot big enough that it's not pixelated, to make sure you get rid of all the grid lines and all the headers and all the things that are unnecessary or kind of non-aesthetic. It's so much faster, literally, just to make the rectangles and just to have a line that kind of keeps everything on it. Yeah, probably these could be all up a little bit, but in general, it's just so much faster. So, and also Figma is really intuitive with things. So if I wanted, you can see that it says height is 53. If you could do operations in it. So like, let's just say everything was a base 100 or something. You can do like 100 times, 1.5. And then it literally makes the exact right proportions that you're looking for, because it takes in operations. So I suggest that everybody makes their own graphs. It's so much easier, it's quicker, and it keeps the aesthetic, consistent.
Got an example on the left too.
Yeah, great job. So this slide is so nice. Like, I love looking at this slide, because I think, first of all, if you look at this box, I think it does a good job of showing. Look how much room it gives it on the edge. There's just so much breathing room on this edge that your eye's immediately drawn and stuck to the middle of the slide, which is where you want it. You have a nice title that immediately tells you what this is about. You have great subtitles that tells you there are 3 main sections of this slide that you have to look at. Also, as Alex was talking about earlier, you have to break it up in a way that is logical and in a way that is easier to read than just bullet points that are kind of cluttered. So this one uses icons and circles. to kind of center the text to them and show you the separation between points, which is very clear in this slide as opposed to the previous slide.
Yeah, just one small thing to add as well. Because of the simplicity of this kind of style, it makes the gradient, which usually isn't like the best choice when you're like thinking of like color choices. It makes the gradient work really nice here because you've got this like blue purple gradient, which is kind of funky, but it's only in like the specific like graphs for the icons, and the rest is a lot of white space. It just fits really interestingly, which is why I like this vibe a lot.
I think that's a good point. Also, here's like a super nuanced thing, but this is like pro tricks. If you can tell, nothing on this slide is in black. So maybe if I zoom out, you wouldn't be able to see that. But as you look closer, nothing on this slide is black. This is even a dark gray. Yeah. And that's kind of just interesting because you could see that if I change one thing to black, like let's just say I make this black, it's so much harsher. Like you can just see the difference between this and this. This is like easier to read. It's a little bit, nicer to follow. And the black is just so abrasive, I guess. So if you guys want to try that trick, I think it's a good one.
Yeah, another great way of kind of like really honing in on that information hierarchy. You make your body type gray, for example, or a lighter shaded gray, that kind of thing. Definitely another great tactic. Yeah.
Yeah, and then kind of just going off this point, like we talked about separating your points well. This slide also shows how you separate your points super well. So if you're reading this slide, first thing you look at is major players. Then you look at these 4 main points. And those are your 4 main points. And you know that there are 4 main points because there are 4 icons with circles around it telling you, here's the information you need to get. And then as you have time or as you are interested, then you can go into the next thing, which is kind of this subline right next to the header. And then if you're really super interested, you can read the description. Mm-hmm. And that is a very clear way. And this slide does a great job in showing you where does your eyes go? How do they follow? And it doesn't throw you off. It allows you to naturally look at what you want to look at and get all the information from this text. And it, again, has very nice spacing. It's very centered, not distracting at all. Here's this slide goes off of this other slide. You can see that they're together. Also, another quick things that we haven't said. This slide's pretty much the same as this one, and we're running out of time a little bit, so we'll just move along quickly. But also, if you put a line in, please make sure it's not too thick. Like that's just another small thing, but it kind of throws it off. Make sure it's centered, and then you don't want it to be too big.
I'd also just add as well, like I think those two slides we're looking at are from the same deck, and so what they've done is they've inverted like the color scheme. So they had like the header as like black or dark, and then they had the body as teal. And now in this one they have the title as teal. Like don't do that. Keep it consistent. Just because that also helps with like the reader getting used to that information hierarchy that you've created. Because like, oh, if they see teal, then they know it's like a body text, for example. Even though you shouldn't do that, but if you're gonna do it, you should keep it consistent so that it's easier for the reader or the viewer to pick up on those patterns that you're making in your deck.
True. And then also you see that they tried to use icons this time, but even when they tried, sometimes like this looks a little scrunched to me. Like I feel like it should be like at least this, but they wanted to make it all the same size. I think it's always easier just to put a circle around it than it is to try to match up the sizes of the icons. Like to throw a circle around this, then you make sure that it's centered in the circle, and they should be the same size anyway, but the circle really helps that, and it shows everyone like these all match. Again, another issue, I don't love the weighting of this. This one has a medium. I think it could probably go with like a book or like something like that, because body text doesn't usually need anything like, unless you're specifically emphasizing a word or sentence in a body text, it doesn't need to have like such a heavy weight. And then, as we said earlier, these don't even need to be underlined. It probably looks cleaner without it. Well, it definitely looks cleaner without it. Okay, can you go through timelines for us, Alex? Like if we just looked, I don't know what happened this timeline.
Yeah, I think what they were doing with this timeline, it looks like they were trying to space it out like proportionally so that like the time matched the distance of each event. I would say again, like that is not necessary because the purpose of the timeline really is to just kind of show like, okay, these are the main things that have happened up until now in a sequential order. Like this first, then this, then this, then this. They don't really need to know, oh, specifically it was like 2 days apart or whatnot. So if you look at the timeline on the left, like it's just evenly spaced out together, and as well, like it's better in that they've got like alternating like up down up down up down versus this one has like 2 up 2 downs. You've got this like awkward white space in the top. So with timelines generally, I would just keep it like evenly spaced out, and I would alternate top and bottom if that's the kind of design aesthetic you're going for.
And this is kind of what he's talking about. So
Yeah.
when you see this slide, it's very obvious, although it's maybe not as like if you were in science in 7th grade, maybe your teacher would get mad at you because it's not accurate. But if you look at it, it's very easy to see. It starts in 2015. That's when it opened out. Here's October 2015, February. Like it's very easy to follow. It's not misleading because it literally tells you the exact months and years. The only issue with this slide, Alex, what's the one issue with this slide that you would say? This is even our example slide, but I still see kind of one thing that kind of throws me off.
Yeah, I would say that like again, you know, well, it looks like did you just delete something in the top left? It looks like the month is gone.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what I was talking about. That looks like I think this is a screenshot. That is the only thing I can see that's wrong with this slide is you can see how consistent they are, and they make sure that they're consistent with even like mostly the amount of lines. They have the same amount of lines for all of them. It's really well done, but they had months for every single other event other than the first one. So I would just like to say that if you're going to do that, make sure to have months on every single one of them or none of them. But yeah. So even the example slides sometimes have issues, but here's the main takeaways from these. You have to keep all of your design consistent. So we talked about all of them and how they've had some kind of consistency issues, but that's really a main takeaway that you need. So going over the 3 main takeaways, make sure that you do not have too much going on in your slides. We talked about that. Either it looks cluttered or your information's not like presented clearly enough and the information hierarchy is all thrown off. So make sure you don't do that. Differentiating points. Try to do that in a consistent way and in a clear way. So like if we go back to this one didn't really do it in such a clear and consistent way. They had problems with this. But this one does it so nicely and subtly that it's very appealing to the reader and it's very easy for them to get the information. Alex, do you have anything else to say about either one of the first 2 points?
Yeah, I think what differentiating points, like a tactic I really love is using headers. It just makes it so much easier to skim text, a lot easier. And if you're going to use headers and text, then I'd make sure the text is smaller or it's gray, just so you can differentiate between the two. Really make the information hierarchy super clear.
Yeah, great point. I like that too. Also, the circles or the icons does help sometimes. Like it definitely. I think it definitely can be overdone, but it definitely helps at some points. And then the last thing, as you said, keep it consistent, guys. You really want to build a cohesive deck that is the same deck, same style from the start to the finish, and it'll throw people off if you're kind of like switching styles too much, or like Alex said, you make the body text this color one slide and then a different color the next. Really try to make sure that there's a theme and that the viewer can identify that theme very easily.
Yeah. And again, these are all very broad themes. Of course, they're like, again, like with design, there are never like super hard, fast rules. There are probably going to be like edge cases or, specific design, aspects where maybe it might make sense to do something a little slightly different. But I think when you're starting off and you're making some decks, like at a basic level, these are 3 things that you should definitely like stick to and try to stick to the best of your ability.
For sure. All right, so guys, we just wanted to give you guys this quick little design workshop. These are very common mistakes. So if you guys have done this in a past deck, or you guys, feel like this design still might be better than, some of your old design, we have all started this design journey at a different point. But I'll tell you from personal experience, my design was probably worse than all of these to start out with. And now I'm at a point where I feel like I know all of these rules. I really make my information clear. And that's really the whole goal of design. The goal of design is not to make it look aesthetic. The goal of the design is to aid the content. And that's a really important thing. So definitely don't get discouraged. Some of the example slides are really good, but that's because we practiced a ton. And design is a skill. It's a hard skill and something you can practice. So please go practice it if you want to get better at it, because that is a surefire way to get better. Copy other people's designs. So if you like something here, copy one of the things that we did. Yeah, definitely take inspiration. Go on Pinterest. I'm excited if you guys sign up for Black Mirror to see your designs, because now I feel like you guys have a clear idea of some of the mistakes people make, and I don't think you guys will. I think you guys will make sure that all of your information is presented in the clearest, best way possible. I'm super excited for that. As I mentioned earlier, there's going to be office hours on Thursday, 5 to 7, and Saturday from 1 to 3. So please drop in if you guys are competing. I would love to see you guys there. I would love to work with you. And yeah, I'm very excited. So the link is in our bio for signups on Instagram. So feel free to grab a couple of your friends. If you guys don't have people that you guys want to compete with, we have solos. We have people that have signed up without teams, and we're going to pair them all together. So please sign up. Even if you don't know who to sign up with, just sign up and we will help get it all sorted out for you guys. All right, I think that we're all good. Fran, actually first, Alex, do you have anything else to say about design?
No, I think you hit it on the head. I sent a quick link in the chat, Cofolios. I think that's a great resource as well. I've used a lot to kind of just like get inspiration from other people who are real product designers. This is more so on the product design aspect, but I think it's also applicable to slide design. You can pick up the design aesthetic, intuition, that kind of thing. But yeah, I think you hit it on the head, Joe, for sure.
Guys, everyone have a great week. I really hope you sign up. I look forward to seeing you guys in office hours. Take care. Alex and I love you all. And then we're going to somehow get out the attendance link to you guys, so don't worry about that. But all right, thanks everyone. Fran, can you play some music for us? Play us out.